Fall from the peak: how strategic mistakes destroyed Joe Biden's legacy. 5 decades in the corridors of Washington, half a century of political experience, international relations, and promises to restore stability to the world. When Joe Biden entered the White House as president in 2021, many thought that traditional politics had returned and that the era of surprises was over. But history does not mercy hesitation, and hard realism does not recognize good intentions. How did the president who came to save America's legacy turn into the man who oversaw the decline of its geopolitical prestige and the shaking of its domestic economy? In this report, we dismantle the 5 strategic mistakes that destroyed Joe Biden's political legacy and opened the door for the return of the very storm he tried to stop. The first mistake: the night Kabul fell. It was not just a failed military operation, it was an earthquake that struck the credibility of the superpower to the core. In August 2021, Biden insisted on executing a sudden and rushed withdrawal from Afghanistan. He wanted to end the forever war, but the execution was catastrophic. The world watched in disbelief as Washington abandoned its allies in Kabul within hours, leaving behind billions of dollars worth of weapons to its traditional adversary. This scene did not pass unnoticed in other decision-making capitals. Strategic analysts agree that that exact moment sent a clear signal to Moscow and Beijing: America is in a stage of retreat and hesitation. That was the first spark that shook the wall of American deterrence around the world. The second mistake: the Ukrainian attrition trap. When the war broke out in Ukraine, Biden led a massive Western coalition to impose sanctions and support Kyiv. However, the management of the conflict fell into the trap of the doctrine of hesitation. Instead of decisiveness, Biden managed military support with a dropper of fear, an excessive fear of direct confrontation with Russia. The Biden administration delayed for months, even years, in providing Ukraine with decisive weapons such as fighter jets and long-range missiles, and imposed strict restrictions on their use. The result: the war turned into a bloody swamp of attrition, with no clear diplomatic or military horizon, and Russia absorbed the economic shock, leaving the Western voter funding a never-ending war without a realistic plan for victory. The third mistake: Gaza and moral isolation. In the Middle East, Biden's political doctrine faced its harshest moral test. During the Gaza war, the White House appeared completely helpless to restrain or curb its strategic ally, the government of Benjamin Netanyahu. Washington appeared in a contradictory and difficult position. It was the engineer and financier militarily with weapons and ammunition, and at the same time the moral preacher on the necessity of protecting civilians. This confusion led the United States into unprecedented diplomatic isolation within the halls of the United Nations, stripped it of what remained of its moral influence in human rights issues, and caused a sharp, unprecedented division within the youthful base of the Democratic Party itself. The fourth mistake: the erosion of the citizen's pocket. In politics, a citizen can forgive a mistake abroad, but they never forgive when it touches their daily livelihood. At the beginning of his term, Biden pumped massive financial stimulus packages worth trillions of dollars to revive the economy after the pandemic. Despite warnings from senior economists, the administration downplayed inflation, describing it as transitory and temporary. But the numbers do not lie. Inflation jumped to record levels, eroding the purchasing power of the average citizen, while interest rates, housing costs, and fuel prices spiked. This was accompanied by a severe mishandling of the southern border file, where millions of undocumented migrants crossed without a backup security and economic plan, making the economy and the border the strongest weapon in the hands of Biden's opponents to strike his domestic legacy. The fifth and greatest mistake: the battle of stubbornness and time. But the greatest strategic mistake, which ended Biden's political ambitions with a knockout blow, was not a war or a law, it was his personal estimation of time. In 2020, Biden was presented to the public as a transitional bridge, paving the way for a younger generation. Yet, he and his family insisted on holding on to power and running for a second term in 2024, ignoring clear indicators of his advanced age. The night of the famous debate in June 2024 arrived to bring down the curtain violently. The cognitive and physical reality was laid bare before millions of viewers. This insistence on holding on to the nomination until the final moments cost the Democratic Party the opportunity to hold real primary elections that could produce a strong candidate capable of competing and preparing, leading in the end to a massive political disarray that paved the way for a sweeping return of the Republicans to dismantle what remained of Biden's legacy. Conclusion. History teaches us that leadership is not just about good intentions or the desire to remain, but the ability to make decisive decisions at the right moment, and to read reality as it is, not as we want it to be. Joe Biden lived his political life at the heart of the old world order and tried to preserve it. But his strategic mistakes accelerated the dismantling of this system. Biden leaves the stage, leaving behind a more turbulent world and an America standing on the cusp of a new era where there is no place for the hesitant.